Archie Girl is back with another theory for y'all. Now just hear me out. So there's this author by the name of David Woodcock who wrote this story, or he wrote this book called Ascension Mysteries, where he mentioned something about a black Jesus. On this podcast, and a caller called in and asked him to go more in depth about this story and what happened with this whole black Jesus character. So allegedly, this man came forth and told David this story, who worked for the Rothschilds. And he was talking about how the government is pretty much afraid of an attack from extraterrestrials, and then he started to talk about this black Jesus. So allegedly in the 1960s, 1970s, there was this man in Africa who had the abilities like what the Bible says Jesus had. So he was healing the sick, he was levitating, he was doing all these like mystical things, or he had these abilities or whatever. Long story short, he began to gain a following. I guess he was approached by the government who said, hey, we're going to bring you to the United Nations and show everybody these abilities that you have. Well, they lied, and they pretty much set this man up and they tried to kill him, but he would not die. So allegedly they tried to shoot him in the head. The hole just closed up. They tried to chop this man's body up. Like, allegedly they did all this stuff to this man. He just kept coming back alive. Now, this is the part of the story that really stood out to me. The black Jesus character made a statement, and he was like, since they didn't want him here, that he had to leave. But in the future, there's going to be beings like him that come back, and there's nothing the government is going to be able to do about it. So there was another caller who called in and pretty much asked David, how do we contact extraterrestrials, or how would we know if we're in contact with extraterrestrials? And David's response was through dream work, meditation, and the awareness of synchronicities is how we would know we was connecting with these ETs. Now here's my theory. I personally think this black Jesus character was one of the Anunnaki. And I also think that when he said that there will be beings like him who come back in the future is the reason why now the government is starting to talk about extraterrestrials. I also think, based on what David said about synchronicities, that maybe that's the reason everybody is starting to go through an awakening at the same time, and also why we see so many angel numbers.
You worry about how you can fit into this matrix. I'm worrying about how we can get out of it. I'm worrying about how we can be independent from the structures that they have built in their own world. But you still on that plate of how to survive in their world. Well, how do you take them to school without that? Why are you worried about that? Why do we have such a need to fit in where we're not wanted or where we do not belong? What is up with that? We fight all through the 60s, not for freedom for ourselves, not for right for ourselves, but the right to sit next to people that hate us. You got to understand how fucked up your mind has to be to fight. To sleep with a people, bear children with a people, shop with a people, go to school with a people, and eat with a people who is actively at war with you. We don't see nothing wrong with that. These are the same people who have actively killed your ancestors.
So those of you who don't like to say that God can manifest in a human being, then look at the physical creation that you call universe, without which you would have no knowledge of God whatsoever. It is the sun, the moon, the star, the earth, the wind, the trees, the clouds, the birds, the bees, the land, the rivers, the lakes, the mountains. They testify to the glory of God. So when you study the material creation, that's when you find the Creator. And if we as human beings are the crown, greater than the mountains, greater than the rivers and the lakes, greater than the sun, do you mean that a fuller manifestation of God cannot come through us as human beings? Then you don't understand religion at all.